Covington Catholic students, they weren't the only targets of anti-Christian bias. Second Lady Karen Pence, do you remember? She was also slammed for taking a job at a private Christian school.
Students in MAGA gear harassing a Native American elder.
A Native American man was, had a standoff with students who were, mocking him.
Karen Pence has every right. Her First Amendment belongs to the Pences as much as it belongs to anybody. Does it matter that all taxpayers pay for her housing? All taxpayers pay for her Secret Service protection? It's not her fault that she needs protection. This is the world we live in. But all taxpayers subsidize her life.
So why does it seem that liberals have ramped up their attacks on Christians? Here now to weigh in is former New York Congresswoman with the Independent Women's Forum, Dr. Nan Hayworth. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Heather. Great.
So let's just begin there with Vice President Pence's wife, Karen.
And Mrs. Pence obviously is a devout Christian. Christian schools are certainly allowed to teach the precepts of their faith to the children who are in their care. The left has had a long-standing animus against conservatives and Christians and Catholics in particular because they perceive that they're anti-libertarian, I think, in some ways, in matters of personal behavior. And with the election of President Trump, they became unhinged because their identity politics was offended, and they rely on that kind of us versus them mentality. So the fact that a man who has supported the evangelical Christians, has been the most pro-life president in our history, basically, and now the vice president's wife is,
And she had taught at the school before.
Right.
The big issue with the school being is that they're against homosexuality.
Right. They have
same-sex marriage.
Right. They hold that as a precept, but that does not translate into Mrs. Pence's, therefore, actively restricting the rights of other Americans to practice their lifestyles the way they choose to. But the left is so inflamed at this point, and we saw it with the Covington Catholic situation as well, that really it's open season now. There is an anti-conservative, anti-Christian, anti-Catholic bigotry that basically is proving, unfortunately, that the left, though they claim they want tolerance, they're not willing to respect others' First Amendment rights.
And not even backing down after, if you take a look at that full video right there, it is very clear that it was a completely different story altogether.
Yes.
But still standing their ground, many who lashed out to begin with and not taking back, and not apologizing for it, nothing like that.
Right. Well, and again, that's a manifestation of the fact that they feel that just by virtue of the fact that these young men were wearing MAGA hats, that they're fair game.
Yeah.
Even though, yes, they're young people. And in fact, in the Parkland situation, they said, don't go after the kids, even if you disagree with them or feel they're saying something.
But the opposite here.
Right, exactly. The opposite here, they're fair game.
And something else, though, in that, and we want to get to this next topic, though, is that there were some young girls, some teenage girls there separately who were wearing like some MAGA toboggan type things. And, this other group was in their face as well. So, something needs to be done about it.
We've seen it all
for
across
sure,
the country, Heather. This just happened to be
You have to do
most
something because it's just like ramping up further and further. Let's talk about this, though. President Trump is vowing not to cave to Democrats when it comes to the shutdown. We have these dueling proposals to be voted on Thursday. What do you think is going to happen?
I think probably neither bill will pass. We can all think of a couple of Republican senators who might vote for the Democratic bill, Senators Murkowski and Collins most likely, and a couple of Democratic senators who might vote for the Republican bill, Manchin, maybe Jones. But fundamentally, there's still an impasse. At this point, though, because the president has offered something that the Democrats cherish, namely a form of amnesty for DACA beneficiaries.
But they're saying that's not enough because they say he took it away to begin with.
He took away certain aspects of the amnesty appeal process. Yes, but he's offered something that's important to them. So the question we all have to ask ourselves is, if they're serious about negotiating, were the president to say, okay, let's fund the government through February 8th, we'll sit down and talk. They should be serious now. The president has offered them a starting point.
Should he do that, though? Should he fund the government through February 8th and then negotiate with them? Because then does he lose any type of what he has to negotiate with?
Right. Heather, the leverage is all political. Both sides are testing their bases and testing the middle. They don't want to have a toxic effect on the 2020 election. So everybody's monitoring the politics. Eventually, one side will yield. The impasse will essentially be lost before it's won, because one side will say, we can't afford this political consequence. But the risk that the Democrats have is that it's the same old Nancy Pelosi that we see here in the House of Representatives. President Trump has said, let's work on DACA.
Right.
And she says, no, we're not even going to talk about that.
Right. We were listening to Chuck Schumer earlier, and he said, he didn't give us a chance to negotiate. He did give you a chance to negotiate.
Right. He
and you said you
absolutely
didn't
did.
want to negotiate. Now you say you did.
Oh, and by the way, you voted for wall funding many times over.
More funding, actually.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Nan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we